Nice to see everybody here. So this is pretty much our first lecture of the 26th Annual Symposium on the Holocaust and Genocide. I'm Marlene Grossman. For those of you who don't know me, I coordinate the symposium. I'm going to introduce our speaker. So Dr. Wahied Wagnat-Hagh was the president of the International Human Rights League from 2001 to 2003. He has a diploma in sociology with subsidiary subjects of psychology and education. He has a second diploma in political science as well as a PhD in political science. From 2006 to 2013, he was senior research fellow at the European Foundation for Democracy. From 2009 to 2013, he was a member of the first independent expert group on anti-Semitism for the Anti-Semitism report of the German Bundsang. Okay, from Dr. Wagnat-Hagh has been a fellow with MIMRI and the European Foundation for Democracy. Okay, because there's no microphone, I really need you guys to be not talking, okay? And not rustling as much as possible to make sure that you can hear nicely, okay? While he starts, I'm going to run down and see if it's possible to get a microphone, but in the meantime, I just need your cooperation like that, okay? So, Dr. Wahied Wagnat-Hagh.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation here to Montreal. I live in Germany, in Berlin, and therefore my language is very German, so I'm sorry for my accent and so on. So I begin with some current incidents, outlined then in a historic overview how Islamism arose and developed and come then to some current multi-present problems of Islamic movements. It was more than justifiable when New York Times asked when an Iranian drone flew into Israeli airspace in February 2018 if a new catastrophic war was brewing in the Middle East. In fact, New York Times asked if a war between Iran and Israel in Syria is inevitable. The reactions to the drone adventure were clear. The drone was destroyed and an Israeli jet was downed after bombing sites in Syria. Can we put this light in another way because it shines directly in my eyes? It's for this. Okay. New York Times reported that tactical advisors from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps are deployed at military bases across Syria. Its commanders regularly shows up at the front lines to lead battles. Iran has built and continues to back powerful militias with thousands of fighters it has trained in Syria. And it has brought in new technologies like drones to spy on enemies and perhaps to attack them from the sky. In fact, Iran first wanted to defend the rule of Bashar Assad. Then Iran fought the IS to get the position to remain in Syria and focus to creating an infrastructure to threaten Israel. Furthermore, Iran gives advanced high-precision weapons capable of hitting sensitive infrastructure to Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful external force. I come back to this problem at the end of my talk again. How anti-Semitic is the Islamic Republic of Iran? On February 27 of the current year, Mehr News, it is an Iranian news agency, published an article with the title, Iran to hold International Israel Hourglass Festival. It is a cartoon festival which will be organized in Tehran. The festival is dedicated, as Mehr News writes, to anti-Israel art and media productions will be held in the Iranian capital Tehran in April, in the next weeks. The Secretary General of the International Conference on Supporting Palestinian Intifada said, Hourglass Festival is a symbol of the imminent collapse of the Zionist regime of Israel, as predicted by the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution. Ayatollah's, the name of the leader of the Islamic Revolution is Ayatollah Khamenei now in Iran. Mehr News writes, Iran has not spared any effort to support Palestine and reinforce Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Palestinian resistance groups to help the nation realize their goal. He went on to say then that other points which I will not mention now. But now I come to show you some examples. First, this is the working definition of anti-Semitism, as you know for sure, and I show you now very fast because I have not so many time. Some caricatures from the past cartoon festivals which are organized in Iran. They are totally anti-Semitic. The themes and issues of such festivals are to demonize and to dehumanize Israel with the goal of finding an ideological legitimation for an abstract and ideological goal, which is the destruction of Israel. Such issues include Israel to be a cancerous tumor, Israel a fake, racist, and colonialist regime. The issue of my talk is to scrutinize in how far this ideological goal is getting a real danger again, knowing that regional wars are not new in the Middle East. It is very important for European scientists to know what happens in their neighborhood. As you know, the name of the first revolutionary leader of Iran is Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The revolutionary aim of Khomeini was not peace and, in fact, not justice. Humanistic issues were not his problem, but his issue was the liberating Jerusalem, as the Islamists say. For this reason, Khomeini created the Al-Quds Day. The Al-Quds Day is a new phenomenon in the Islamic history. In the whole Islamic history, we never had such a phenomenon as Khomeini has created it. In this day, Khomeini, the first leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, called all Muslims to stand up against Israel in order to destroy the only democracy in the Middle East. And at every last Friday of the Islamic fasting time, the pro-Khomeinist Muslims go on the streets and burn Israeli and US American flags. They propagate on this day the destruction of Israel. Now I show you the pictures again. Here, go fast through it. And this is then from cartoon to the reality, the Al-Quds Day. And by the way, they do not only demonstrate in Tehran, they demonstrate in Berlin and London, in Paris too. I don't know how it is in Canada or in USA.
Sorry, they have a microphone for you.
Okay.
It's just okay for you.
Okay, then it is. Allow me to go a few steps back into Iranian history, because I came to the result that the Iranian clerics of the 19th century influenced the following Islamic movements in the 20th century and until today, even in the Arab world. No doubt there was an anti-Jewish movement in the Islamic history. In my talk today, I intend to show how Islamic radicals justify the killing and harming Jews in the name of their totalitarian ideology. Daniel Sadiq is a historian who wrote about anti-Semitism in the Iranian history in 19th century. Sadiq wrote, quote, in 1897, Sayyid Rayhan Allah, a Shiite cleric, declared that the Jews must wear a red patch and have a hairstyle different from that of Muslims. Other prohibitions included forbidding Jews from riding horses, wearing socks, and leaving their houses when it rained. Their houses could not be the same height as Muslims, and Jewish women's trousers must have a different color for each leg. I have heard similar stories, especially about the rain and the houses, in my childhood about Baha'is too. I found out that another mullah called Sheikh Fazlullah Nuri, I read his books, who lived in the same period, began a political fight against modernity and operated against Baha'i and Baha'i and against Jews in the end of 19th century. He said, for example, that the Jewish man would seduce Muslim girls, and so he tried to generate and induce anti-Jewish sentiments under his followers, and he got a role model for 70 years later for the Islamic Revolution of Iran. One of the first stamps, which were printed in the first years of the Islamic Revolution in Iran was a stamp with a picture of this anti-Jewish and anti-Baha'i and anti-Baha'i mullah called Nuri. Ayatollah Khomeini said, for example, that the demand and the requirement for the emancipation of men and women would be a Zionist idea. Without doubt, religious prejudices and hate has a history in Islamic societies too. In my researches, I came to the result that the modern Islamic movements had their origin in the Iranian society of the 19th century, as I said. It is historically proven that another leader who himself was influenced by Ayatollah Nuri in Iran, his name is Jamal al-Din Asadabadi, alias Afghani, forced the Iranian Ayatollah Shirazi in its political fights called tobacco protest. It was about a Shia revolt against an 1890s concession granted by Nasruddin Shah to Great Britain. Orientalists like Nikki Keddie introduced Afghani as a modernist and reformist because he defended the use and practice of print technology for newspapers. Nikki Keddie was not aware, and I would say that the misinterpretation of Afghani can be explained as a historic barrier in Keddie's analysis. But Keddie is a very important scientist and very well known, and his books are even translated into Farsi. As we will see, the catastrophe of the new totalitarianism must be traced back to such ideologists. Afghani or Jamal al-Din Asadabadi got a teacher and companion of Rashid Riza. He was a Lebanese and founder of Arabic nationalism and the religious nationalism in the Arab world. And what a surprise, Riza was the teacher of the Egyptian Muslim brothers called Al-Banna. So we go on to the genealogy. And Sayyid Qutb, this is this one. The theories of Muslim brothers fused the ideas of Riza and Al-Banna and others to design and draft the program of the Muslim brothers. And Qutb influenced modern Islamists like Rafsanjani and Khamenei again. It was after Qutb, it was a mutual influence of these Islamists because Qutb Khamenei, for example, translated books from Qutb into Farsi. We see that the Islamic movement's influence after some time each other from the beginning in different Islamic countries. Not to forget, the Muslim Brothers influenced not only Hamas and Hezbollah, but functioned even as a role model for Al-Qaeda and other new revolutionary movements like the hopefully defeated Islamic State. We in Europe fear that if the Islamic State is defeated in Syria, that they come, even 1% of them come to Europe, it would be a catastrophe. These schismatic movements have a common goal: to reawaken the golden times of an anachronistic religious law as state law of new Islamic states, which can be installed as dictatorships. In fact, as Wistrich wrote, quote, Wistrich was a very famous scientist, Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb, Abu Ala Maududi strongly opposed Western individualism and liberal reformism as the antithesis of Islam. Al-Banna founded the Muslim Brothers. This is this one. Hamas got a branch of the Muslim Brothers, and the Iranian left Islamists and reformists founded the Hezbollah in Lebanon. So we have here the whole family. So we can say that perhaps Qutb was for Islamists what Karl Marx was for communists, as Bassam Tibi said. And I would add that if Bassam Tibi is right, then Ayatollah Khomeini was for Islamists what Lenin was for communists. And allow me a next conclusion in between. And if all my assumptions are right, and I think they are, I have to conclude at this level that Islamists, which began at the end of 19th century in Iran, was a reactionary response to the new visions of the Babi and Baha'i religion, which was born in that time in Iran. And here the circle closes in Tehran, the capital of the Islamic, I call it, non- or anti-republic of Iran, because it is nothing similar with republic what exists there. Ahmadinejad and Nasrallah. I show you now some pictures first. Or the first meeting, this was Ahmadinejad and Nasrallah, and here the first meeting of the International Conference on Supporting Palestine Intifada started in October 1991. It was held that in 2001, 2006, 2009, and 2011, and the sixth meeting was held in February 2017, or in last year. Ayatollah Khamenei and President Rouhani were amongst. Sami Abu Zuri, a senior spokesman of Hamas, Ramazan Shallah, the chief of Islamic Jihad movement in Palestine, and Naim Qassem, the second in command of Hezbollah, all well-known terrorist organizations. And now allow me to discuss Hamas and Hezbollah and their unholy anti-Semitic war. Hamas and Hezbollah are two Arab terror organizations maintaining close ties with Iran, and both negating Israel and the Western democracies. In the last decade, the Lebanese Hezbollah-trained Palestinian Islamists gave them financial support. The money came from Iran and from drug trafficking. The Shiite Hezbollah is a role model for the Sunni fundamentalist Hamas. They reject peace with Israel as the Iranian regime does. Thanks to the strategic help from Iran, Hezbollah has a global reach. Remembering the attack on the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires, carried out on 17 March 1992, 29 civilians were killed. 18 July 1994, Buenos Aires, AMIA, an Argentinian Israeli mutual association were attacked. 85 people were killed and hundreds injured. Hezbollah militia carried out the attack with the help of the Iranian regime. Remember 18 July 2012, at this day a bus at the Burgas airport was attacked carrying 42 Israelis. The Bulgarian driver and 5 Israelis were killed and 32 were injured. Hezbollah is a political power in Lebanon and a member of its parliament. Hamas is not as global active as Hezbollah, but such movements share one common goal: pursuing a holy war to wipe out Israel and to say no to the West. Hamas believes that only Islam can break the Jews and destroys their dreams, and of course the West. This is anti-Semitism in its worst tradition. The Hamas Covenant of 1988 was clear, and it quoted Hassan al-Banna, we heard from him before, a father of the Muslim Brothers. Quote, it was written, a quote of al-Banna in this covenant: Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. And in the next Hamas covenant of 2007, we read, it is important because many people were happy that it was an improvement, and now we see what it happens in Gaza. It was not an improvement. In the second covenant of 2007, we read, quote, the establishment of Israel is entirely illegal and contravenes the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and goes against their will and the will of the Ummah. End of the quote. Anyhow, the dream and illusion to eliminate Israel is shared by IS and other Islamist organizations. The credo of Islamist organizations as Hamas and IS is purely religious and Islamic. In their ideological language, they speak of the Prophet as their model and Quran as their constitution. I say they are instrumentalizing Islam too. They use it for their cause. The question for them is a question of possession of land and political rule. They revolt against Israel because they believe that Palestine is an inalienable possession for all generations of Muslims until the end of time. And this is the main point. And exactly this is the big mistake. Because in my eyes, Palestine is the homeland of the Jews. It is, of course, the Jews have to live with Muslims in the region too, but it is the homeland of the Jews. Hamas refers in its propaganda to Quran as well to anti-Semitic sources as to protocols of Zion. Of course, Hamas, as the other Islamists claim to only be defensive and to defend Islam, since allegedly the Jews, thanks to their global influence, are the power which wants to destroy Islam. It is they think that the Jews want to destroy Islam, but I at least don't see it. Hamas propagates that they fight against the Zionist invaders. They compare Israel with an imperialist colonialist movement. This pattern of thought exists in the leftist theories too. So many Islamists argue that they are not anti-Jewish but are only anti-Zionists and don't understand that Israel is now, since its establishment, the new homeland of the Jews. No doubt, the Muslims have to live together with Jews, as I said, in this country. Their ideology is a barrier to cooperate with Israel, since Hamas sees itself as the Islamic spearhead and the avant-garde of the Palestinian. Arab and of the Palestinian, of Arab, and of course, of their Islamic cause. The question is now, why does Iran support Sunni organizations? Iranian Shia strategy pursues the policy of Persian colonialism and hegemony over a divided Arab world. Iran originally created the Lebanese branch of Hezbollah, to export its Islamic revolution abroad, and in 1982. And still it provides this terrorist organization with about hundreds millions of dollars. And not only with money, but with weapons too. The victory over the Zionist regime is an old plan and desire of the Iranian Islamists. Even we can go back to the 50s to see the plans. Israelis, Jews, and Americans are in Hezbollah's ideology as enemies of God and of Islam. They are the party of the devil, and Hezbollah is the party of God. In its founding statement, Hezbollah had defined Israel as the vanguard of the United States in our Islamic world. It was a quote. The axis of terror and jihad that extends from Tehran via Damascus to Beirut and Gaza is not only an axis of war and terrorism, but of eliminatory, yes, genocidal antisemitism. This axis denies Holocaust in the same moment as it threats to destroy Israel. And for us in Germany, the denial of Holocaust is in fact a big problem. This threat has an ideological basis, which is an integral part of the totalitarian state ideology and of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is the ideology of the destruction of Israel, as I said. The primary utopian goal of the Islamist ideology remains the re-Islamization of the Islamic world, with the long term of the re-Islamization of the whole world. But this is only a utopia. The thesis put forward is that the Iranian version of Holocaust denial represents an exogenous form of anti-Semitism, since the version of Iranian Islamic anti-Semitism is imported and influenced by revisionist Holocaust deniers from Europe. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial have been the topic of considerable public attention in the past and in present. And Holocaust denial has a function and is a prelude to deny Israel's right to exist, to propagate the ideology of its destruction with the further main aim of re-Islamizing the Islamic world. Now I come to the next slide. Prior to Khomeini's rise, Iranian fundamentalists were under the influence of the Fedayeen Islam movement. Their terrorist acts served as a role model for the Islamist revolutionaries of 1979. The Fedayeen Islam remained in communication and collaboration with the Egyptian Islamist and anti-Semitic leader Sayyid Qutb again. I don't show anymore his picture, but they were again in very mutual contact. And it was Khomeini who said in his books, for example, one quote, "I asked the Islamic government why they are arguing about oil. Palestine has fallen into disfavor. Throw the Jews out of Palestine." Khomeini got again a motor for anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli politics, and much more aggressive than the Arabs in that time, even in that time of Qutb. So the Iranians again made pressure to activate the Palestinians, even in the 60s, long before the Islamic Revolution. Khomeini also accused those who were not aggressive enough in their opposition to Israel of being in an alliance with the Jews. And even in that time, with the Shah, the ruler of that time. After the Iranian Revolution 1979, antisemitism and eliminatory anti-Zionism became an integral part of Iranian state ideology and practice and have been distributed through all its institutions. They began then to adopt relativization and denial of Holocaust from some revisionists like Roger Garaudy. He was translated and they made many interviews with them in state radio and television and propagated their positions. I show you now some slides because to show how they transfer this ideology in the media. These were cartoons in Kayhan. This is a very big state newspapers, and they try to, I would say, poison the Iranians with this ideology. For the Iranian rulers, Islamist rulers, the Palestinians are only victims, since the Islamist primary goal is the re-Islamization of the Islamic world. They deny the benefits of any democratization in the sense of democratic Western systems. Israel is seen as an alien non-Islamic entity and the spearhead of Western democracies. In the eyes of Khomeinists and other Islamist ideologues, Israel must therefore be destroyed. Zionism and the West are declared as the reasons for and causes of all problems in the Middle East. Islam alone is seen as the key of any solution in the world. In this context, the Holocaust is perceived as an invented strategy to legitimize the Zionist entity. I come back now to the problems of antisemitism. Whilst the Nazi crimes against Jews are presented by Islamists as exaggerated and are thereby downplayed, Israeli Jews are at the same time accused of perpetrating genocide against the Palestinians. The chain of arguments is the Islamist form of secondary genocidal or eliminatory antisemitism, as we say, relativizing the Holocaust and questioning Israel's right to exist. The faint argumentation is the following. Zionists founded the myth of the Holocaust to have a reason to colonize Palestine and found the state of Israel. This is their argument. Israel has no legitimacy to exist and must be destroyed to pave the way of the Islamization of the Islamic world. Above all, it is a sign of religious fanatism that Iranian Islamists believe that only a fundamentalist approach against the decay of Western democracies and Israel is the only path following God's word. It is their, I think, misinterpretation of a religion. The Islamist utopia is an Islamic world without Israel and without America, and of course without Europe, and a world without Western democracies. It was Ayatollah Khomeini, whose ideology is still alive in the Iranian state doctrine, who denied the right of existence of Israel in the 70s, as I said, long before the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And the current history in Syria and the policy of Hamas show that this ideology has a real component. I come now from the ideology to the reality, which could get very menacing for the whole region. Remembering Iran's military presence in Syria or Hamas policy in the Gaza Strip show that even if terrorist groups and Islamist totalitarian dictatorship have not enough power to reach their goals, they emerge as very destructive and can jeopardize their neighbors. Now let us have a short view at the situation of Christians and Baha'i in Iran. Beside the relative homogeneous group of Zoroastrians, the Christian Iranian churches are diverse. Armenian, Chaldean, as well as the Assyrian Christians belong to the ethnic religious Christian groups in Iran. Furthermore, there is the Roman Catholic Church and various denominations like the Presbyterian Church and the Jamaat Rabbani. It is another church. They are discriminated but not really persecuted as the house church movement. The new converts are really under systematic pressure. All Iranian governments since the Islamic Revolution of 1979 are zealous to limit the activities and growth of Christian communities. The Iranian regime tries to overcome the problem of the minorities through a biological solution of ousting by limiting their growth and minimizing the members of their communities. This strategy fails since new underground Christian movements grow in home churches, although living as a converted Christian is indeed dangerous in Iran. Only few current examples, as Mohabbat News, it is a Christian news agency, reports. There are, for example, Hadi Asghari, an Iranian Christian convert, was convicted, only to see what happens, of action against national security through evangelism and sentenced to 10 years in prison and 2-year ban leaving the country, only because of the religion. And everybody can ask himself why a belief can be dangerous for the security of a country. Iranian judicial authorities denied Hadi Asghari temporarily release on bail, even ordering him to be kept in the infamous Evin prison. He has been held in jail for 19 months without leave. It is a historic fact, as the anti-government protests in the last days of 2017 demonstrated, that millions of Iranians are now disillusioned with the Islamic government. They don't believe anymore in the lies of the Islamic rulers, and many young people are disenchanted with Islam itself. Silently, they are abandoning their religion and often opt Christianity. In my eyes, and now I come to the next point, anti-Bahaism in Iran has many parallels to Islamic legitimized antisemitism. The persecution of the Baha'i as a non-recognized religion in Iran is one of the most obvious cases of state persecution. It is remarkable that since 170 years, all assassins of Baha'i enjoyed impunity. An important conflict-born point is born of, in fact, religious differences. On the one hand, Baha'i religion recognized Islam as an Abrahamic religion. On the other hand, the Baha'i religion has repealed the Islamic law as the alleged last word of God. Baha'i religion has abrogated the Islamic law. For a few examples, jihad is forbidden. Women and men have equal rights. Baha'i founded modern schools for male and female students in the beginning of last century, what Jews indeed did too. Baha'i religion is not just spiritual and aimed at improving the morals of humanity, but also very much concerned with improving social conditions and environmental protection. Conspiracy theories played and play until today an important role in the persecution of the Baha'i. Conspiracy theories were forked in which Baha'i are called to be agents of foreign countries, fictional stories which remind of the anti-Semitic protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was a fabricated story of a Jewish plan for global domination. As the Baha'i International Community reports, the systematic oppression of Iranian Baha'is continues with increased sophistication. Arrests and imprisonments continue. In the first 2 decades, more than 200 Baha'i were killed and executed. Hundreds more were tortured and imprisoned. 10,000 lost jobs, access to education, and other rights. The state organizes and disseminates anti-Baha'i propaganda in the Iranian media. Arrests and detentions follow a similar pattern. Agents of the Ministry of Intelligence attack homes, confiscate computers and books, and arrest innocent Baha'i. There is persecution in education. Baha'i school children continue to be slandered by teachers in schools. Young Baha'i are denied access to public and private universities. Attacks on Baha'i or Baha'i-owned properties remain unprosecuted and unpunished, creating a sense of impunity for the attackers. The situation facing Baha'i has not changed since the coming to power of President Rouhani in August 2013. Publicly inciting hatred against any group is an offense in the 21st century, normally, but belongs to the practice of the Iranian Islamic dictatorship, disseminated in official or semi-official Iranian media. In my eyes, the persecution of the Baha'i in Iran is genocidal. Following the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, we learn that genocide is understood as a process. Under Article 6, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. I think the following 4 points or 5 under Article 6 fits to the situation of the Iranian Baha'i. A. Killing members of the group. B. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. E. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. The Rome Statute shows how genocide is not only the fulfilled crime of mass murdering, but genocide is seen as an ongoing process. As long as the Constitution of Iran has not been changed, and as long as the state law has not banned Sharia, even Shirin Ebadi demands it now, from its law system, and as long as the Iranian rulers don't adopt secular laws, the collective punishment of the innocent Baha'i community in Iran remains a dramatic real option. Regarding the whole complex situation, I draw the conclusion that the situation in the Middle East will get worse, and I am in debt for telling you why. The ultima ratio, as we say in German, or the last resort of the new totalitarianism, could be the suicide of its political system. Iran is currently expanding its power. The Middle East today is an even bigger powder keg for a next war compared to 10 years ago. The Islamist system of rule in Iran represents totalitarianism par excellence, which legitimates itself with religious arguments. While the new totalitarianism acts rational when it comes to reach its practical needs and goals, it could act with the utmost probability irrational if it feels itself in danger. In this moment, the irrationality of its totalitarian ideology could be deployed even in a society as suicidal and murderous and dreadful way. Since decades, the Islamic ideologists don't terminate and don't stop the hate propaganda against Israel, a symbol of modernity and therefore a main concept of enemy for the Islamists. The Islamist rulers want to adapt the modern technology but reanimate in vain and desperately the golden time of Islam with violence. I end my talk with few examples how this violence is propagated. In September 2015, New York Times quoted Khamenei. After nuclear negotiations, the Zionist regime said that they will not be worried about Iran in the next 25 years. Ayatollah Khomeini wrote, "I am telling you, first, you will not be around in 25 years' time, and God willing, there will be no Zionist regime in 25 years. Second, during this period, the spirit of fighting, heroism, and jihad will keep you worried every moment." So we see it's not only ideology, it's not only cartoons, it is a bitter reality. Khamenei said that Israel won't exist in 25 years. He explained later his catastrophic prediction that Israel would be safe for the period under the nuclear agreement reached in July 2015. The head of Iran's secret operations overseas threatened to erase Zionist entity just on February 15, 2018. Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani called for revenge on 10th anniversary of assassination of Hezbollah terror chief Imad Mughniya. Similar to Ahmadinejad, he said that the punishment for shedding Mughniya's blood would be to wipe out the Zionist entity. In any case, the historic fact is that the danger is not only the problem of an aggressive ideology, the totalitarian ideology remains a violent utopia, but the problem of a confrontation which has its origin in an anti-Semitic idea and which is in the context of Islamism is getting a real danger for the region. I mean the danger of a totalitarian dictatorship which relativizes Holocaust and propagates the destruction of Israel. This verbal propaganda could trigger a real war. At the end of the day, the intentionality or non-intentionality of evil deeds remain meaningless. The world should stand up to hinder such an aggressive attack by Iranian Revolutionary Guards and their proxies But I end with a sad hope. Sad hope because the price of this hope is very high. I am sure that the Iranian women could get the motor of a change and transformation in Iran. At least in one sentence, at the end, I appeal for more solidarity for the new movement of the Iranian women protesting against compulsory headscarf law. And not to forget, Iranian women and the Iranian society have well deserved to live in a free society. Thank you. Normally, I don't speak about the Iranian society because as an Iran expert, I don't know I'm not living in Iran. So I think many people speak about the Iranian society, and at the end of the day, they are wrong, in the past at least. So I don't dare to speak about the Iranian youth, how they would behave. I always say Habermas, he was a very famous German sociologist. In the 60s, he wrote a book and said that even Germany is only partly a democratic society. Germany with Weimar Republic and so on. I ask myself, why should we get Iran after this whole hundreds of years, thousands of years of this culture should get a democracy overnight? So of course the new media, internet have a totally another influence on the Iranian society. And I can only hope that there will, at least I can say that the will for a change is there. The protests show it. More I don't dare to say.
Any other questions?
Do you think that the regime has gotten significantly less totalitarian over the years, or do you think it's just that as it was in 1979?
I think the regime has got stronger. The regime now is really a real totalitarian state with a very, very strong power. It has reached goals. I say always, even Ahmadinejad and Khamenei and Khomeini didn't imagine that the Revolutionary Guards could 10 years later stand at the border of Israel. Even Ahmadinejad didn't dream of it. Under Rouhani, it happens. And this is the absurdity or the questionable role of Rouhani, so that he made it possible. I mean, it was Rouhani who said that on the same day when the nuclear treaty was signed, Rouhani gave the order to produce a mass sortiment of rockets and missiles. So the power of the Iranian regime should not be underestimated. At least in Germany and in Europe, we know it. So therefore, Iran is a big power now.
Do you think that they become so strict and totalitarian because the Islamic State they're supporting is losing territories to the Western societies?
Using territories?
Losing territories, losing battles to the Western forces. Do you think that it has anything to do, maybe they're scared and they become more totalitarian?
To be honest, no. Because if all this history, which I think that the context of Islamism is right, it is an old plan to come to rule first. So they fought for it for many years, for many decades. At least for about, if it's right that it was even a response to the birth of Baha'i religion, what I believe, a wrong response, by the way. So they were the only consistent actor in this whole story are in fact the adherents of this political movement. They are very consistent. They have their goals, and after the revolution, the Western countries didn't. It was I think Carter who believed that Khomeini was Gandhi, the Iranian Gandhi. So nobody believed that it could come to such a problem. So no, they had their region, and Iran has expanded. The Iranian expansion, I said, is so far that they didn't believe that they could reach this goal, to stand one day in such a short time to remain now in Syria, for example.
Do you feel gotten stricter on, like, has gotten more tolerant because they fear the protesters.
Because they fear what?
Protesters. They're scared of the protesters.
No, the regime was before the protests very strong too. So first, of course you could say that that every protest would provocate the state and they would get more repressive. But in my eyes, it would be unfair to such an argument because this would mean that the Iranian society has no chance to get one day a free society. So, and they were not, these protests, they were not violent protests.
I'm not saying do you think they've gone more violent than they already are?
To be honest, I don't even believe that the Iranian rulers are really afraid of the society because they know that they are controlling them. The much more earnest fear is even not Israel. It is in fact now Saudi Arabia. It is in fact perhaps even they have many influences in Iraq, but in Iraq the Americans are there. So they are more afraid, I think, of the neighbors than of their own society because nobody dares to do anything.
Do you think that if Iran was on the verge of a nuclear breakthrough, what would you think that the West should do? Like, do you think an invasion of Iran would ever be a good idea?
I don't want to go so far in here, but Rouhani. I read it today in the that he warns that if the Americans do this, if Trump does this, then they would react in only 1 week. We don't know what he means. We don't know how the reactions would be, but in the past they warned that they would restart again the nuclear program. So, and what it means and what it's, if the neighbors of Iran would tolerate it, I don't know it. I guess they would not. And I'm sure that it would not be Israel, but it would be other Islamic neighbors who would not tolerate it. Even I remember that even Israeli scholars many years ago said that we would even tolerate 1 or 2 nuclear bombs of Iran. They were Israelis from Tel Aviv. So they said they would tolerate 1 or 2 nuclear bombs of Iran. So, but I don't think that the Saudis would do it.
Why do you think that other countries like Azerbaijan or any other neighbors would not tolerate?
I didn't hear it.
Why do you think that neighboring countries like Azerbaijan and other countries would not tolerate Iran having nuclear warheads?
Why they would not tolerate?
They're not an obvious target for Iran. They're not. Israel is.
Israel is not a danger for Iran. Israel never wanted. I mean, what should Israel do in such a big country? I mean, the danger would, even that it was the European scholars say, that a race would begin in the Middle East, a nuclear race, so that the danger is not that in the next day a war begins, but in the next day Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan has the bomb, and other countries would try or would demand the nuclear bomb too. This is the argument, at least in Europe, to say why Iran should not have a nuclear bomb. Because the others then would like to have the bomb too. And I still think that the world should have less nuclear and other weapons. I know that now it is the worst time to have such dreams, but disarmament of the world would be a better solution than Iran gets a bomb.